Hello, everyone, and welcome to Energy Evolution Experience. I am so grateful and super pleased to bring you Stephen Feely today, who I was telling him before I started recording that I am a little bit of a fan girl over him. This is somebody who has supported me through some of the most difficult challenges of my life and has taught me immense amounts of wisdom around shamanism and different kinds of energy medicine techniques. And I praise him to the highest. He is a very respectable human who is super pure, clean, in his energetics, in his way of life, in his intention and his attention. And I just feel very, very honored that you've joined the team and that you've joined me today. So thank you so much.
So honored to be here, Amy, very much. And right back at you on the respect for you and all that you're manifesting and bringing into the world. It's truly amazing. So it's always an honor to work with you. And I celebrate our colleagueship and all that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so to start today, I would love for the audience to share, excuse me, I would love, this is my nerves coming because I'm like, this is my teacher, you know. I would love for you to share a little bit about what people could expect from a session from you. And what kinds of, what kind of work do you do, in a sense, if you can give people a little bit of a description? And I understand that it is not one of the, everything is individualized. And it's not necessarily like you can say, hey, this is exactly what I do, and this is what you can expect, and this is the outcome and result. Because it's almost intangible, but the tangible results come afterwards. And I'm curious if you can just talk a little bit about illumination and what that means, and some of the other, soul retrieval potentially, and some of the other ways and modalities that you utilize to get somebody from where they are to where they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honored with each of my clients and their unique situations that they come into the session with, the intentions that they're holding. One of the things that I feel like, is like if I looked at the big umbrella of like my clients, it's like everyone is showing up. And you probably find this as well, Amy, but that they're showing up, and what's on their map, if you use the metaphor of a map, what's on their map isn't, parts of that aren't working, or maybe a lot of it isn't working. There's places in their life where they just feel very constricted, or they feel very limited, or their creativity has been sort of like ground out, or they just feel like there's just not enough room for them to express themselves as themselves. And there's oftentimes a feeling of a lack of connection to their wisdom, like they know that there's something different, but they feel like there's something lacking. So, what I feel like is the most important part of what I do is the acknowledgement that their body, their system, their luminous field, their soul actually has an immense answers, has immense destiny pieces already living inside of them. Otherwise, they really wouldn't have shown up if that wasn't the case. And so what my job or my role in the situation is to partner with them and do some really, really deep listening. I think for a lot of people, I know from my past, where I was like working through deep things, I wanted to share my story because that was what I needed to do. But sometimes the story just got shared, and then it was almost like a cloud that was around me, and it didn't really disperse, and I was still in the shadow of that. That's okay. That's exactly what was needed at the time. But when I got, when you get in touch with someone like you or I, we're sitting there helping them discover tease out the deeper wisdom pieces in there, because to me, things don't really want to go from our system, whether it's a massive physical malady, whether there's relationship issues, whether they're a leader of business and things aren't working well, or things could be better. Things don't want to release or leave or transmute or transform, on that evolutionary process until we're connected to the wisdom that's behind them, because it's almost like a sacred friend. I mean, I know a lot of my clients, I come in and I tell them, it's like, these are all gifts. And they're like, what? These are gifts? But they soon discover, it's like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. I'm glad I had all the issues, because behind all that was the gifts, but that they tap me on the shoulder and they're bringing that wisdom. So with the process, like you mentioned, illumination, that's a core shamanic intervention and process that really allows people to drop inside and really sense in what's happening for them at a very primal level. Because often the stories that we tell ourselves, or the stories that we might have gotten from, talk therapy and some other things like that, that it's just out there on the edges. But if you go inside and the client really can drop in and discover this is a primal feeling, or this is a primal point, this is where we're going in and looking at what I'll call the imprints. Where there, I mean, again, there could be beautiful imprints of joy and love and happiness and beauty and stuff like that. We're all experiencing that. There can also be the imprints, the old stories, things that we probably from childhood, things from family of origin, maybe things from relationships, whatever, that are in there that are limiting our greatest expression. So when we can get in touch with that with the illumination process, we're allowing ourselves to connect in with that, and then to draw that out. And that's where I come in. I'm partnering with them, but I come in to deeply draw out those heavy imprints and flush out the wisdom that's underneath it. And then with the illumination process, it's almost like the wisdom is like a seed. And then the illumination process is bringing in, with that heavy imprint gone, is bringing in that fresh and vital light. That's very pure. It's like a form of creation. I would say that it's almost like it's very open. It doesn't know anything other than coming in to support, and that illuminatory light comes in, and then it allows that seed of that wisdom to bloom forth. And that's where the integration and the evolution really starts to happen, from that. So it's very powerful. And also the illumination is something that allows the whole luminous energy field of a person's body, which is just kind of stores information, stores our life force, to be able to go in and shift the way that happened. Because sometimes there's a lot of habitual things, there's a lot of patterns. The client, like they might have been in a relationship, they got a divorce, and then the next relationship, oh my gosh, it feels like the same thing again, even though it's a different person. So it allows those pattern pieces to shift. I mean, I've worked with people in business before, and they've had minor success in business, and then they sold that business, and then they got another one, and they kept moving on because it wasn't what they needed. But they got work as like the CEO or the COO or something of the business, and it allowed them to have a different way that they envisioned. Next thing they know, they had amazing abundant success because they were able to shift the core pattern that was inside of them, that was actually expressing out the way all of us, and whatever we do in our relationships, our families, our work, the leadership roles we have in business, what's happening inside is expressing out in there. So it's that ultimate thing where what's around us is guiding us to look at what's in us. So that illuminatory process really just helps shift that core kind of like ecology of what the person is experiencing, and then they get to walk forward with, as to use your words from some of your lovely, walk into their destiny. And they get to be the guide with the destiny, and they really get to find that inner wisdom. It's a game changer, as you well know, with all the clients you've done, Amy. I've always been impressed with all the stories you've talked about your testimonies with clients. I mean, it's that game changer piece, and people go, oh my gosh, I have my hands on the steering wheel, and I can create this. In fact, I can have a different steering wheel than I've ever had before. You can remap it as much as you want.
Yeah, I love that. And, and to speak to a testimonial, you, and I would love to hear about, other people that you've worked with, if you feel like sharing, but, working with me, I called you in not knowing you, but having you referred to me. I called you in right away when I knew that something needed to shift in my marriage. And it was right away. And you really walked alongside us and Sherpa'd us, through the medicine wheel. You Sherpa'd and guided us through a lot of relational pieces, and supported both of us through huge childhood wounds that continue to repeat, where, my ex-husband and I got a chance to really flush those out. And a number of other things, which I don't need to speak about, but the level of safety and heldness and support that I felt from you in order for me to really accept the wisdom that I hold and to bring that forward is unbelievable, and you were a massive part of that process. I mean, and it was such an honor to be able to be supported in the ways that I was through energy medicine, through, I don't want to call it like, it was coaching, I mean, it was coaching and support, and really allowing me, and you empower people
Mm.
to be their best selves.
Yeah.
By
That's always my goal, is to really keep the power right where it is with them, because we're partnering, and that allows people to be empowered. Yes. And to remember their power. Right.
And that's the thing that I love about you. And that's the thing that I love about this experience, for energy evolution experience. It really is an experience that somebody gets to have, and we're just walking beside them. And the whole point of this program is for us to illuminate the beauty inside of somebody, and educate and inform, and allow them to come up with their own answers, versus somebody, telling, or saying, do this, advising, and things of that nature. It's really just mirroring back, teaching them about themselves, for them to be able to really accept and onboard the beauty that is them. And that's all the parts, right? That is all the parts. And that's the beauty of the work that you do, is illuminating all the parts. Because it is true that if we reject parts of us, even that are ugly, we'll say, then they're going to continue to come back and persist and want to show up like you're talking about. And we get to bring them forward and remove and release them, but they get to be felt in the system. And you do such a beautiful job of that. And for me, the level of, I want to say, how you call it, partnership. It is partnership, because there was a commitment. And I remember, and I'll never forget, you said something to me that snapped me into awakeness, where I was like, what am I going to choose? And that question will forever be in my mind, of what really got me to shift, so that I could listen to spirit and find exactly the perfect timing to do the thing I needed to do to move my life forward in the trajectory that it is now. And that that was due to the platform that we got to hold together and co-create together.
Yes.
So,
that whole piece, I mean, about, respecting a client, like respecting you, and being very safe and very gentle, but yet challenging. That's, and that's that, like you said, I love that you use the word mirror, because, that's, I would say, like a sacred witness or a sacred mirror, so that not only does the client get to really embrace all the parts of them that are so amazing, because we all are amazing. I mean, I've not worked with a single client that didn't have amazing going on, but there were parts that they didn't want to see. And yes, I mean, all of us would do that. We're like, oh my gosh, put that back in the box. I mean, let's just get on with this. I mean, but that shadow says, well, I'll come on this side of you. And and so the shadow, I always like to say that there's like light energy and there's heavy energy. There's, in fact, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken. There's nothing it's just, all of it is a teaching piece. And how would we like to take all that energy and that partnership way, rework it, so that we can actually go into our destiny? Because I tell you, I love when, one of the best parts for me is when I see a client reclaim the vision that they may have had all along, but then be able to then not just do that part, but add all the new pieces that are coming. And that's when I can see that they're getting those aha moments. They're getting that, oh my gosh, this is what it is. I mean, what is that? I don't know what the quote is. They say there's two points of life. One is when you're born, and then the second one is when you realize that there's only one life. Like there's something like, I mean, I've totally botched that quote, but it's like that's what's really going on. You go like, oh my gosh, I get to do this thing called life. And then they're I mean, from a standpoint, they might have very powerful success in relationships and business and everything else, but in those quiet moments when they're just sitting having a mug of tea, they're happy with themselves. They're gaining greater traction in that sense of just being happy and at peace. That is that column of transformation that's through and through. And of course, that's what energy evolution is all about. It's like, this is going to affect all parts of your life, not just the some sequestered part or just over here. It's the fullness of being. So,
So for our analytical folks who are listening to this, and even though, this isn't, what would be a tangible result that you provided for a client where they came to you and you know, had X and then later came Y. And I know you said like and I know you work with some very powerful business leaders. And I know that they've had great abundance afterwards. I mean, would there be a percentage that you could share of like what they've, you know, have they 10x their business? And not to say that because
these are great questions. There's great questions. I mean, I always like to say, like, you know, don't take anything we're saying to think. It's like, it's good to have like, what's some tangible results? I mean, if people are making a choice to work with you and me and all the others, you know, and an example that just comes to mind, there was a business leader, a guy in actually in Nashville, Tennessee, just down the road, which is local. And he runs what I consider at the time a very successful company. He does outdoor building products and whatnot, and exterior sheeting for buildings and stuff like that. And he had started his business, a business up in Minnesota, but now he's grown it to the place where he had like 25 like, you know, offices and huge like inventory. So you're sitting there going like, this guy's already like really successful. But here's what was happening. Here's the interesting thing. He came to me and he said, I'm not happy. That was our first interchange. He says, I'm not happy. He says, I feel like I'm just like hitting a wall and I don't know. And I almost feel like something's kind of like lurking behind me. And very interesting, when we got into working with him, he was sitting there and he had a grandfather. He'd had a grandfather that had been very successful in business, but had lost it all twice. And that second time, it had been so heavy for him. I mean, I'm giving some kind of personal details without giving the name, that this grandfather took his life because it was so like, it was overwhelming. So there was a pattern inside, because he knew how to grow a really good business, but it was like the whole situation, he felt like it was just like he was raising up, but he was getting close to a collapse. The same thing was happening in his marriage. You know, I met his wife. I've actually did some work with his wife as well. Amazing woman, very powerful in her own right. She was her own businesswoman, but they were reaching this thing, and it felt like something was lurking. So there was this deeper piece in there. So I stepped in and you know, did some very deep listening, some very deep sort of space, so he could like work the ecology of what was going on. And that was when I did some extraction work from his field. Because it was like his grandfather's soul was sort of like, he had known his grandfather when he was really little. And it was almost like the grandfather had like almost latched onto him, you know. And so there was something that was informing his whole system. And I mean, no judgment to the grandfather. That was just what happened at the time of like the crossing. So it was like that was in there, and it was like informing. So when we extracted that and kind of worked that out, and then went through, and I worked with some of his team members at some of the different offices, because some of that energy had kind of gotten in there, some of that place where the vision was a little bit mangled from what it could be. Well, here's the thing. He was making, like, I would say he was probably grossing personally in his own bank account, I think it was like close to like maybe $3 million a year. Okay. This was 3 years ago. So I'm just going to give a framework on this. So $3 million a year. And you'd say like, that's a lot of nice money.
Yeah.
You know, and I think people deserve their abundance. I think that the universe is so filled with abundance that all of us can be abundant. And a lot of people go, how could that be? No, I believe it. Well, I talked with him. It's interesting. I talked with him 2 months ago. He is now grossing $11 million a year, personally, in his own bank account. So like his business, I mean, obviously it's a much bigger thing. He has to pay his people. He pays all his contractors and stuff, but look at that, from that 11 million. And guess what? I mean, he's such a, you know, and he has found ways to reinvest that in community and invest that and like programs, support for others. But so this is the kind of thing that happens. He is feeling so liberated that it's actually going in to support others and going in to support. I mean, he's like, you know, contributing to the public library and stuff like that. So that's what that, like, it unlocked for him, because before I think he was like holding on to it.
Yes.
You know how like sometimes, I mean, I could give you $2 million, and if you felt like that was all there was, it might just sit in your bank account for 5 years, and you're sitting there like, you know, eating cold soup, you know, without the heat on, because you know, so it was for him. He got to start to play with the money and realize that it was energy. And that was the shift. So you know this so well, you know, you know, so now that energy is flowing, and I just fully suspect that it'll just continue to climb and climb. And he pays his people very well now, He paid him well before, but he really pays his people well. So you see the expanding thing, what can happen in this work, that it's not only just, especially when you're working with like business leaders, community leaders, it framework and framework and framework. And the next thing you know, whole systems are shifting from transformation. So I go like, that's seriously amazing results, you know, and his relationship with his wife, they renewed their vows. And they don't even, they told me, they said they don't even recognize each other, and that's the best thing, because it's like I mean, honestly, he said every day's a date. And you know what I mean by that? It's like when you're not falling asleep at the wheel, and you don't even, you know, wave to your wife when you get up in the morning. It's like every day is so sacred and special. That's what it should be with friends, with lovers, and all of these things. It's like today is like, wow, I get another day to do this. So that's the level of like, there's money involved, there's his own personal happiness, the team, the building, all the contractors he works with. It's huge. I mean, I think he said that he touches probably about, I would say close to about 17,000 people. If you really look at like all the source of materials and stuff like that, where his money is going out, and that's just only growing. So like 17,000 people. And he makes a point to connect in ways of connecting in with all those different teams. And so I'm going like, and that's what's so amazing about working with leaders. At the same time, if you work with one individual that's just home by themselves, that's also completely tangible, because it's a felt experience. So that's just one example that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And I saw, because I do check back with my clients in a sense of just wanting to hold space for them, because I feel like when you dedicate yourself to work with someone like you, Amy, or me, or anybody else on the team, that's a very powerful, very courageous act. So our job is to really say, I'm here for you. I'm here to hold space for you and see this through. And I'm like, even when they've launched into something really amazing, you're sitting there just like, you know, awesome, you've got this one. So I feel like that's where the flames are up, and we're really transmuting any obstacles that can hold us back from our greatness.
You know, and what comes to mind when you were saying that too is like, you know, one of the things that this team gets to do is be the high tide that raises all boats. And I feel like
that's a great quote. That's an Amy quote. I'm gonna write that down and put it on my wall.
It's actually not my quote,
Okay.
but I don't know whose quote it is, because I, you know, but it is, but that's what we're doing, you know, and this is part of, I think, the major mission and the vision that we all share, right? For raising collective consciousness together.
That's it.
In the best way we know how, you know, with the gifts that we've been given by Source and God. And so, and, you know, I mean, the gift right now, just, I can feel your energy through this meeting, and your joy and your vitality. And I am so grateful that you're on the team. And I know that everybody who gets to work with you,
Very honored, Amy. Yeah.
exactly the same. Yeah. So anybody who is looking to work with Stephen, please reach out to Jenna at csm@energyevolutionx.com. And we will be looking forward to hearing from you.